What's coming around is, when we left off last time, we had 2 articles we needed still to respond. So we wanted to finish that up, and I'll walk through this, and then I know you all have some responses. And hopefully then we're back and forth a little bit more in this groove of being able to share and have dialogue, so. So we are Article 23, safety. I think everyone has a copy. The blue is what it appears we seem to have some agreement as far as language. Yellow is still where it's either new language or we haven't agreed. Anything not highlighted is current language. So Article 23 is a little probably awkward in the sense of with new language, things might not be in exactly the right order. But the one thing I would say is it looks like there is quite a bit of agreement in this area, which I think is great because last time we also spent a lot of time. And so I just want to kind of walk through. The first 2 paragraphs, again, in agreement. The third paragraph, highlighted in yellow, the district will notify all staff annually. I didn't see this in your agreement. So this came again from the teacher's contract. I know there was a lot of pulling language from there. Then 23.1.2, we added coaching and supports as we thought based on one of your earlier proposals, we wanted to just try and make sure we were providing support for individuals. I didn't see that in your last proposal. Moving down to right before 23.1.3, the notification will happen as soon as possible. And I know there's been some back and forth in this area. The reason we are not wanting to put a specific number of days is sometimes based on the time a meeting happens and when it's actually documented, we recognize there can be some time that happens, but we know that the importance of timing to communicate is important. So we're hoping we can either work with this. We had last put in a timely manner. I think you all had a specific number of days. So I think we're in the right direction. But we didn't want to lock ourselves to just a certain date because we know things can happen. And the intent is really we are sharing as soon as we can. Turning the page over, 23.1.4. I think we're fairly close in this area. I think we both have reworked this a little bit. And so it may be more just dialogue to understand what each team is sort of looking for. Our intent behind this was supervisor or designee to make a plan to prepare for that re-engagement. We recognize when something happens, an employee needs that opportunity, one, for the break, and also a chance to have conversation and kind of maybe there's some different things that need to happen before the individual's going back in. So being able to have that time for discussion. The designee, just to note, if a principal happens to be out of the building for a meeting or something, then being able to designate. At elementary, I could imagine it's either a teacher or it could be the dean of students, right? It's going to look different at each building, but to identify that. Let's see. Moving down, I think the yellow we had gone ahead and struck out, so I highlighted that. I don't think there's been an agreement under 23.1.6. The new section, again, we're in agreement. Some of that comes from our teacher's contract as well. 23.2, the uncommon health and safety. I know there's been a request to strike uncommon. When we negotiated this the last time, we spent a lot of time discussing this particular area. And it came about because of some uncommon. And so we searched for is there another word that would work? Because we really did want to designate, this isn't just an everyday situation sort of thing. So we would like to leave uncommon unless there is another word that better fits. We just didn't identify one. And then for Article 24, we're in agreement of striking part of that first piece. I think the last sentence is fine because it just acknowledges. And so that's already in there. And then the duration, we're all hoping we can get a 3-year. Any questions?
Is that okay, Matt? I wanted to share something and then ask a question. Around the wording uncommon, which I totally agree we spent a lot of time working on. One of the feelings I've heard back from folks is that by calling some things uncommon, we're almost normalizing the other things that are happening. And there's a feeling, which I want to put it down to a feeling because I'm not saying it's true. There's a feeling that staff receiving physical aggression from students is being normalized, that it's becoming considered a normalized part of the job. And that is scary to people, that it's not. So by calling some of the things worthy of being uncommon, but other things being something that just happens, that's the impression that staff are getting from it. And I can see that. There is a lot of that happening, and staff don't want it to be feeling like normalized. So that can be some of the, and just saying this around the word, use of the word uncommon infers the other stuff is common and normed. I'm not saying that's true, but it infers that feeling.
Can you give me an example, Marcy?
So I had a staff member, this staff member was one of the ones who talked to me about the word uncommon. She was getting hit, there was 3 or 4 different students. For the first 3 months of the school year, I think she was doing about 5 injury reports a week. Through all of that, she never received any, she put in every one of the forms, she put down a lot of times like this is the 5th time, this is the 6th time. She never received any of the personal leave payout or anything else, that those almost seemed to be normed, or they weren't uncommon enough, but to be literally on the receiving end of physical aggression just constantly and being hurt. That's an example. And that also was one of the things that brought up some of the wording we were trying to put in there about, are we basing whether people are, who are receiving these things, are we basing it on who the kid is giving it or who the staff member is receiving it? And we wanted to make sure we know our feeling is, this is the contract is not the staff, and it's about the staff member receiving an injury, not necessarily having to be the same child every time.
Yeah. Off the record, I'd love to have that person's name so I could review it, because I would also say many a times I hear a story of something that happened and what's actually stated in one way and what's actually recorded is a little different. And so I'd be curious about that, and don't want to put you on the spot and don't want that.
I'll absolutely do that. She actually ended up resigning in March because the physical aggression became too much for her. And she was really good, but she just couldn't take it.
Yeah, okay. So I can certainly look further into that, but I do think sometimes I hear it a lot.
Absolutely.
Where I'm hearing different pieces of information. So.
But almost anytime we have something good, there's an exception to every rule, and we can't let a few people who aren't doing it quite right not make it okay for everybody else.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or thoughts?
We'll talk about it at
Okay.
the conversation. Get these out.
You're good.
Come here.
This space is better.
It's way better. The other one is just like we were on different planets. I just like this one. Article 1, there was a change. We reverted to the original language, took out the article that part of related to personal freedom. Article 2 and 3, it looks like we're okay on. Article 4. Use the language related to translation and interpretation services. And the rest of that article, as we go down, under 4.7.2, this is a counter to the language that you all didn't like. When possible, the district shall schedule this orientation before an employee begins the job. So just-
Mary, can I just ask? Thank you for adding that commentary.
It helps me in my notes, so I don't.
That's totally fine. I'm curious why, I mean, we do this, but why it's so important to put our work in this for you all.
I can take that. So what we're concerned about is that we have 30 days under the law. That's our responsibility to talk to them, give them a copy of the contract, have at least have a 30-minute meeting and then minimum, and then talk to them and give them the contract. And there's scenarios where that's not exactly happening all the time. So we'd like to get that codified in here so that we both sides know the importance of it, because sooner or later, somebody, probably an outside group, is going to make an issue of that. So we'd like to have something in here to say, hey, look, this is the process. So if we're running into a roadblock somewhere along the way, and I think generally this has worked out fairly well here, it's just probably mid-year hires and stuff like that we're really talking about. But we'd like to have that in there so we can point and say, no, this needs to happen when we're dealing with a supervisor, principal, whatever, and make sure it is getting done. So we stay within the law. That we got a lot of good things in this, but we have some responsibilities too. So that's what if you have a better way of writing that, we'd look at it. But that's what we're trying to accomplish, is that 30-day window, because it's calendar days too. So it does
Right,
make
but I mean, that's law. So, I mean, and we've talked about several times, not necessarily putting the law in here because we all need to follow that. I think we've made some decisions in this district to try and get individuals into their roles as soon as possible by doing our mid-year hires. And again, this truly is around mid-year hires, I recognize, to the building. So we have a plan of how we do that. But there also has to be cooperation on all parts, and I don't want this to land just on us, which is actually, right, this is under the association rights.
Right.
But you're putting our piece under your association rights. So I think we have an agreement and understanding about that. I'm not sure it actually needs to be contract language.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, if you guys have, this is not exactly the law right here either, from torn from the law, it has the same idea, but it doesn't say the 30 days and all that kind of stuff. But if you have a better way of saying it, or if you want to include it in another section, I think we'd be open to that. We're really just trying to figure out so we can point to a process so we don't hit any snags, because that's if they work the whole month, that's 20 days, not really 30, and that's a tight turnaround. And mid-year is usually super busy, so it's just one of those things where if you have a better way of doing this, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, my better way is not to put it in the contract.
But it doesn't necessarily accomplish what we're trying to do, so.
I know, but
All right.
So we added the language when possible to give that flexibility, because that was part of the conversation last time. We understand that, especially in mid-year, it's important to get the position filled and to get training up to speed with these employees. So we wanted to give that flexibility to the district with that language. Is that not coming across in the contract though?
I just still think it's language that needs to be in the contract. I mean, again, there's process that's going to change. Of course, that's an important piece, but it's not language I think needs to be in the contract. Anyway, so I needed to better understand why the push on that.
Sure.
All right. Oh boy. So under 4.10, the welcome back rally and training day being proposed. Marcy, I know you had a few words you wanted to
So
say.
this is one that's our team has felt pretty strongly about. And I wanted to, knowing that you're going to go back to either consider it, not consider it, or maybe do a counter proposal. Last night when I couldn't sleep, this was in my head. So one of the things, a theme that I've been hearing as we're bargaining right now, is there's a whole lot of things that we've talked about, like sick leave, different things that we know are not communicating out to staff, that staff are not maybe understanding or knowing how to do correctly. or they were hired 30 years ago and had their new employer orientation. They haven't had much since. We've all agreed that emails don't always get read, or, they pick out a few things, but not all the details. I do that, everybody does. We're envisioning this as a chance to calibrate staff for the district as well as, the union. And as I was thinking about it last night, one of the things that came into my head was almost like the new employee orientations. So an hour, but like 45 minutes of it, possibly HR collaborating with us, meeting beforehand, talking about things that haven't went well in the prior year, that need reminding. We collaborate for like the first 45 minutes of the 60 minutes. And then just like with new employer orientation, you guys leave and we can say some union stuff. So really union stuff could possibly just be about 15 minutes of it where it's just about the union, just like there. But the rest of it is a time to bring those staff together to talk about how to use sick leave and when to use sick leave, and remember that it's your whole allotments up front, and personal leave, and be sure to do an unpaid, and I'm not just focusing on leaves, but just anything that hasn't went well. And, hear from your administrators, what have they struggled with? What have classified staff maybe not been understanding, like taking your breaks, anything that, we keep a list of things we're hearing from staff they're confused on. You guys keep a list or hear from your administrators, meet with I guess I'm giving an idea of what it could look like that is really, truly mutually beneficial for the district and the union. It's hard for them to say they don't know it when they sat in a room and you spoke at them, kind of thing, in the same way where they're like, oh, I didn't see that email, or I didn't understand, kind of thing.
So I appreciate that clarification, and I would, based on how it's written, though, it looks like it's adding for additional time, because, and you've heard me say this multiple times, we already now don't get everyone to complete their stuff when they're paid during this time.
Right.
So it's a little hard to say, let's add more time when you're not even getting this done.
I understand, but part of that is even talking to them about that one of the things could be safe schools. You really have to do this. Some of these things that don't always translate out. So this is me giving, because this came to me last night, obviously we didn't put this all together last night. So I'm just giving an idea of it would be kind of awesome if you guys thought about it and maybe had a counter proposal, but it could be mutually beneficial for things that you guys are seeing, because that has been a thing we've been talking about. What has not been working well? What do we need to do?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just for some additional clarification on this too, that, although I agree that all this process can be helpful, we do need some dedicated time for ours, and probably 50 minutes would not make that happen, because we have to get them updates from the union too, what's going on with that, because they're members, right? And it's just easier to do it all at once at the beginning, and then that information gets out to them too, and then we don't have to chase them around all year long too, is the idea too.
So what happens when they don't do the district stuff and then they don't do your stuff?
Well, you can hold them accountable for your stuff. I guess they just get to pay dues and not know what the heck's going on for the other stuff. I mean, I don't know how to fix that, unfortunately, so, but.
Article 5, 6.3.2, it's okay, we can use the words that people are familiar with, breaks, meal, periods. So, take away the rest of it. The callback, we can change, read on language, you can see what's in there. We did have a little counter. On the holiday, it was sort of implied but not stated that the holiday would be a minimum of 3 hours paid. That's the only change in there. And all the rest is more enough. And then for 6.8, we proposed, when you told us about it, community enforceable, this notification shall happen within 3 business days of the plan adjustments being finalized. As they're being finalized, that's not necessarily the date where the meeting occurred. That's just something you ought to talk about. Article 7, there. Down to 7.6.5, we have reverted back to the original contract language. Under 7.8, we put add a section, salary placement during reassignment. When employees placed in a lower salary range due to a reduction in force, step placement shall follow protocols outlined in Article 10.5. It refers back to the other article where we had agreed on language.
Okay.
You can see if you want to keep that like that. Okay. Article 8. Sort of the title, you know, I think is still, someone has a proposal for the title, but it's more than just personnel records, and we still have the yellow, the employee can make a request, and the letter and any documents related to the letter shall be purged. And then the section down below, we still would like the job descriptions for all current district positions to be available publicly to the staff at all times, and review and update 1/3 of these each year. We removed the language related to new hire onboard. And Article 9, under nothing that looks good. Article 10, compensation related matters. On the table below, we've made our drop to the 8.5, 7.5, and 6.5, which is new for us. And then let's just move cross out of the central objection.
Continuation.
Next page, we still have the subsection. We changed the ask down to a minimum of 30 minutes from 60. The reproposal of that subsection. And next page, good. 10.7, longevity. I still think we have some discussion. I still think something needs to be done. People get into longevity. People you're working with to come in, they get their steps, they get the 2, 2.5, whatever, as they go along. You do get the COLA, yes, but these are people who have been with us now 15 plus years. Some, I was looking at one, oh my God, 42 years. And I looked at other districts around the state at what they do. Some of them do like a lump payment of $1,500 every 3 years, which, you know, is less than, but it works out. You can do it yearly, but I think the way with finances, sometimes it's easier to just do it and it's done. But I just would like, if there's something you've seen or can come up with an offer, but that's one we feel really strongly about, is that these people in longevity deserve to have some sort of compensation, recognition, however you want to call it, for their hard work and staying with us. So that's on that part.
Good.
And, down to 10.10, I know you talked about, but we strongly feel that this position needs to be in section C, looking at what other positions are in D. It's definitely not, does not fall into that category in our minds. So we'd like you to relook at that, so we're proposing that. And then down to the bus riders. We still like the first 2 weeks of school not excluded. Under insurance. I had you down for this.
So we were gonna cross this sentence off here because I believe I heard what you said, but I wanted to make sure since wasn't totally clear by my notes. You said this is the process you already use, right? So we don't need to include it in the contract, I believe. I'm paraphrasing obviously, but I believe that's what we talked about. If that's correct, then we can cross this line off. Do I have that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's happened that's different now than when this was originally, this language is in place as we moved to OWEB. And so it's a different process because of the plans that they have, what can be offered. And so it's not really as much of a negotiation as it used to be.
Yeah.
So really, in some ways, some of this language overall could change. And we've never really run into an issue where we couldn't come to an agreement. So that's why it's, again, right now, it almost feels like some of this isn't even relevant.
Right, they're already doing it, so why add more? I get it.
The plan selection language that lives with the district, the application of the reserve, that decision is yours.
Right.
So those two things are separate.
Could I add a clarification? I thought you guys asked us which plans from OWEB choices we wanted to use. Is that not the case?
We do ask you for a recommendation, yes, but ultimately the responsibility is the district's decision where we go.
On plan choices, not
On plan
reserve.
choices,
Yeah.
but not on reserve.
Right, so I think with that understanding, you can cross this out of our proposal. We don't need that in there. I think you're right about that.
Okay. The next page is just some yellows. We did, lowered our ask a little on the insurance at this time, we're down to look at that. We still believe that 6-hour employees should be considered as full-time employees, especially now looking at what hours some people are gonna cut to and stuff, but we'd like to relook and think about that. Holidays. There's a subsection under 12.1.3 under there. If an employee is directed to call back to work on a holiday, reference section 6.5. And we're still asking that we not, just to add the one under the 260s to get Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve both, not just one. And I see that as too much to ask. Under leaves, under Article 14, it looks like 13 were all set. I'm trying to think of some, this is the part that we worked on, I believe. You'll have to read through it, I'm probably not the best one to go through this, but we're changing to 14.3, the late start, early release. And then the language that we put in there. And then 14 for school cancellation and district closure. So something maybe you want to read through and then come back to us with questions, and we can discuss what you're thinking and where it comes from.
Okay.
Unless you think that some of it is super awesome like we did. I think then that would be include that 14.4. So 14.7, the sick leave and pay, we're still asking for an additional sick leave pay. And the table is still there, so this is just a proposal. 14.7.5, we still believe that, the note and everything should not be until after the 5th day, should not include the 5th day, so I still think it needs to be, should not be required unless the employee is absent in excess of 5 consecutive work days. And you were going to see if you could find another word for terminal. I didn't know if you had ended up with that.
Yeah, I'll go back to our notes, but we learned that terminal is not necessarily going to impact. So we can't look at a change, so we'll come back to this.
Okay. Great. Remove condition. Okay. Okay, yeah, I took that part out and strictly that was still the same. We agreed upon. ELO, Toby, simply cash out.
So we heard what you said about maybe the 40 days taking too long. You're trying to see more immediate effects on this. So we adjusted it down from 40 to 10 days so that people could access this benefit sooner to see if that helps with getting people here every day, hopefully when they're not sick. And then on the back end here, we adjusted that to 20 years. Again, trying to show some respect to the folks and for their longevity with us and being with us, up from 10 years. So we basically dropped the top one by 30 days and increased the back one by 10 years. The idea being that, we're gonna show you some, respect for being here all these years with us. You would get this benefit. So we're seeing if that helps the immediate piece and also helps with some of the retiree piece too.
So we had talked about a severance benefit for those 20 years over. So this is not in lieu of that, this is in addition then?
Right, because this would be, for folks that, most of these folks that can't use they can't, like, if your chair weren't your chair, as you can roll that up, but people below that, the officer can't do that. So we're trying to figure out some way to recapture some of that benefit for those folks that have put in all that time, put in 2 decades with you that, we're just trying to show them, hey, look, we can not give you 100%, it's 50%, but we're recognizing that you were here, you weren't using your sick leave or abusing it, and we want to show you some, benefit for that.
And next, okay, sick leave bank, we're in agreement with that, it looks like. Article 16, we're in agreement, no changes on that. Article 17, the JLNC, work will be at a minimum of once per quarter, just to rewritten a little bit from what you had, for up to 2 hours per week.
2 hours.
It's existing language.
Yeah, we'll be working on jobs.
Right, job descriptions, right.
That's like one job description, not making it. Uniforms, we're bringing back our uniform stipend proposal for that third year. No changes in that. 19 we agreed upon, 20, I believe we are, 21, maybe.
So we just want to follow the law. Check that, so, with the exception of the lockout language, so no change on this proposal at this time. Sorry, 21, strike and work action, yeah. And 23 is counted on.
22 grievances.
So we're trying to meet you halfway, you came to 20, we were at 30, we came down to 25. We're seeing if that's the middle part.
I shared last time, the reason we got to 20 is it matches the teacher's contract, which is where you keep pulling language and other things. So that's where we landed on the 20.
So, with respect to the teachers, you know, we like to be a little more thoughtful on our grievances, to give a little more time, make sure we got the exact details, so. And in all seriousness, the reason why it's 30 in most classroom contracts is because we want to be able to have the time to research it, make sure that we're telling you the right thing, rather than file and figure it out later and waste everybody's time. That's really what is at play here. The other timelines have not been altered. It really is the front end to make sure we've got it right. So we don't bring you something that's half baked and then we have to file it because we'll miss our timeline, right? So that's the goal here. This does hit the middle. I don't know if that matters. It's not the teachers though.
Okay, 24, I think you propose some, there's still the last sentence in the waiver that you wanted to keep. And then it looks like 24.3 was an agreement, so we can talk about that.
Okay, so I do have a question though in regards to some of the compensation, because there's a number of things still in here that cost, right? I mean, there's the COLA, there's the cash, sick leave, cash out, changing the insurance, like a number of things. I know it's difficult, but we're cutting 8.2 million. We all are aware that that's significant staff impacts this next year. And so if we accepted this, this means we're cutting more positions. And has that been discussed on your side, or has there been any conversation around that?
I'm not gonna say.
Yeah, so,
I'm gonna say that.
yeah, we're looking at this as an entire 3-year agreement. So how we do it over those 3 years to lessen that impact is something we've had those discussions. I think where we're at on the financial piece is we're really cutting down the language to get that part done. And I think we're gonna be moving to bundles soon to try to show you some different ways that, based on our conversations, how that might work. You know, whether, like you saw an example already of them putting the uniform ask into the 3rd year so that you could try it for a year and see how it works, but then not be locked in for 3 years, right? So there may be some of those things that are coming down the road, you know, when we get to that bundle process. So we did want to bring you back some stuff to show some movement because we appreciate the movement you made as well. But I think you're gonna see more of those kinds of ideas when we get to that bundle phase. So that, obviously, so we can show you, and then if you can pick out what you like and you can show something back different, right? Or maybe you'll disagree, I don't know.
Well, I think we prefer not to cut more positions. So, I mean,
I don't think anybody wants to do that.
right. And I think we're doing everything we can and sort of scraping the barrel to get what we have. And there, like I said, I mean, the insurance change request as well is a pretty significant cost. I know we've shared that.
Mhm.
So, we've talked also about you have the reserves, and that's an area that you all, from the insurance standpoint, because we are not anticipating over the next several years the budget changing for us. We're actually continuing to see declining enrollment and what that's going to mean over the next few years. So we don't want to set ourselves up as maybe some others have by doing contracts they can't afford. And our staff are important to us. So trying to acknowledge and value that as well as being able to continue school.
Yeah, I mean, our members are important to us, right? It's how we exist, right? So I don't think that that's anything that, you know, we have a problem with you saying, you know, we want to show you some different opportunities. We get closer to the bundles, we get to this other language taken care of, to be able to kind of meet that need, you know, so that because if you go out of business, so do we, right? So we get that, you know, I came from the private sector, I've seen it happen, not on the union side, but I've seen it happen, when people go out of business, it's horrible. So that's not what we're trying to do here, we're just trying to have some movement on some things, get a little closer, so that when we get to the bundle stage, you're really seeing, this is set, sign this, we're done today, and maybe you won't agree with it all, but at least you'll be able to see where some of our bottom lines are. And with that consideration and discussions we've had as well on how to make things reasonably affordable, so everybody can keep working, so as best as we can.
Yeah, I know you keep referencing the bundle stage,
Yeah.
but the whole thing is a bundle.
Well,
So
no,
as
no,
much as I would
Yeah.
prefer not to feel like we have to keep doing this ping pong in order to finally see where the next group's gonna move, is that we can just get to the heart of it and get to a settlement.
yeah, and I think our plan is to have, and we'll talk with Team Caucus, I think our plan is, the next go around is to have more of a bundle for financials. We're trying to pare it down so we don't have, you know, I have districts where they hand me like, you know, 30-page bundle, that's just, you know, that's a lot, right? So we're trying to just work through the rest of these languages as best we can. I think we all can agree that there's the real costs, the major costs are gonna be in insurance and sick leave and wages and those kinds of things. So I suspect we'll probably have a few bundles going back and forth on that stuff, you know, but if we're getting more and more of this language, you know, agreed to, which gets it off the table, which reduces that bundle, right? So that's the goal.
All right, did you have any questions, Aaron?
I don't think so.
All right, so
Good.
I think we're okay. So I think we'll caucus. Based on, I'm wondering, let's do a check-in in 45 minutes? Does that seem reasonable?
So
So,
2:30?
yeah,
You can text me if that's changing.
okay.
Yeah, we lost him. I'm sure he'll join us back at the end when I was there last. So, I'll do the majority here in explaining this, but there will be things that, Jennifer will join in on. And since we're across from one another, if you need to, get my attention, you're gonna have to
Throw a pin.
Just Blair right now.
That doesn't always get my attention. So first off, again, a 3-year proposal is what we've both been talking about, but has not yet moved to blue. With 2 to 3, we were good on 4.7, we still feel like that is a responsibility of the district and not comfortable with adding that to the proposal. But we already talked about that.
So quick question, where is 4.7?
4.7.2.
You're 4.7.2.
Oh,
It's not in here.
Gotcha.
So I have both contracts, your last proposal and our last proposal, and I'm gonna be bouncing between them.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
So around for your additional language around welcome back route and training day, we're not opposed to finding space for you all to meet after the day or before the day, if you want to bring members together, but just within that day. Time is really limited, and so what we're trying to do is make an accommodation for you to find a place to meet, but not necessarily to give up the time. And you won't see language, but that's in the spirit of what we're trying to do. So that jumps us all the way to 6.5. And in 6.5, we agree with the majority of the orange, the second line, but the paid holiday. We need to keep the word paid because there are some holidays that are work days, and that becomes confusing if we were to drop the word for different religions and all of the things we need to be thinking about. So we agree with the concept that we've come to, but we think that word's important to maintain.
So quick question on that, what if it's a non-contract day because it's a holiday? Would we consider that the same as paid? Or, I understand what you're saying about the other holidays that aren't necessarily recognized like religious wise, but what about in that scenario?
The paid holidays is based on our identified paid holidays.
Perfect, thank you.
So, and then on to 6.8, there we appreciate what you're trying to do there by adding the word finalized. It's still pretty difficult to get ultra firm on that, and so we're gonna make every effort, but we are wanting to stick with our current language.
I got it. Sorry,
No, that's okay.
following along.
As we get further into it, there's more language and it's a little harder to track on. I agree. So then, for us, the next one is 7.8, that you proposed some additional language. You want to speak to that one?
Yeah, so I think actually we're in agreement on the language. It's just you all in your language referenced a different section, and our idea is rather than reference for someone to have to go look at a different section to read, we just put the language here. So again, I think overall we're in agreement, it's just how we chose to list it here.
And that happens in 3 spots, I believe, right?
Potentially, this was the first three, remember?
Under Article 8, personnel and resource management, we're okay with the change in the title. Under 8.2, the language, the employee can make a request and, we're okay with that language. Because we think it just is a grammatical more than content driven. We do want to hold on to the language that allows us to maintain those on that last line that you, in your proposal, struck out.
Can
And
I
then,
can I ask a question here? So is that, when he says exception to the practice shall be made when reprimand contains written warning of discharge, does that mean like they were given a letter of termination, somehow get pulled back, and that's why you want to keep that?
No, right now, like a letter of reprimand will indicate if there's further, it could lead up to termination. And so that's what this language pertains to.
Okay, thank you.
and then we have a plan for updating job descriptions, but don't feel like we want to add that to the contract. I know that your first JLMC meeting of the fall will be the first, working on the first section of that. So we feel like there's a plan in place. We just don't think it's necessary to add it here. Then that jumps us all the way to Article 10 on compensation. And here, we're sticking with our previous proposal, 5.5, 4, and 3.
Which one is it? 110?
Yep.
Catch up first. Okay.
And then around the translation piece, we recognize that folks who speak the top 5 most frequent languages, in our last negotiations, they gained a step for those 4th and 5th language. So we feel like there's already compensation that's in place for those folks based on the contract and giving additional compensation for language acquisition. So we don't want to add this there.
That was this added subsection here?
Your 10.1.4A.
Okay,
That one's
this one.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
so, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I understood. You said that we added additional compensation for through the top 5 languages?
In the task, we've done that.
Okay,
And so those, if you're have one of the top 5 languages, you're already getting into the additional step. And so we feel like we tried to already address that.
oh, okay,
And that's already in the current language.
okay.
But that's for the top 5 languages.
Right,
not
this
the
is
other
for
languages.
outside of the top 5.
So if
Clarify.
someone is hired as a time card translator for those one-offs, they are paid at a translator rate.
Then if you jump to 10.7, it's the next page. One of the things that got all the papers up there. Oh, one of the things that we heard is that this is a really important one to the team. And so what we decided is, and we knew that there wasn't a lot of interest in that, $600 related to the ending with leave time. And so we moved that over to this to stay within the realm of what we can afford to do. And so what we have and are proposing is that for the longevity step, every second year, there would be $1,000 stipend. And so that would be, the first one would be July 1st of 2025, and it would be at the completion of the school year. And because that is the thing that when we were listening today, if we're wrong, correct us, but as we were listening today, we thought that was the thing that was most important.
Are they connected? I mean,
What do you mean?
You're saying that rather than put $600 for the attendance, you move, your logic, you move some of that to this bonus here, correct?
Right, because we have so much money as we've shared.
Sure.
And so trying to hear what's important to you
Mhm.
is we have not heard that that's an important piece to you. The longevity is, so we made that determination and shifted it.
Okay, thank you.
On your proposal around unified sports to go to section C, we're open to that, but we want to make sure that it's part of an MOU, because it also has some of those OSAA requirements associated with it. And so we just want to, so we're open to it, but we want to put it as an MOU rather than building it here.
Right, because it will then the next time on when we update the salary schedule for extra duty, it would show there. But with that, because it's on that, has requirements for what all of our other coaches do as far as meeting the training requirements, et cetera.
We are holding on to 10.17 related to bus drivers. The reason why we added this was really because we know that it becomes difficult during the middle of a school year to add a rider to a bus. Sometimes it means changing your schedule and your time availability and all those things that make it difficult to add that time. So we are just gonna stick with that language. We know that the first 3 weeks of school, we have somebody on every bus. That's just general management rather than direct student support. And so we haven't added the language that you brought forward in your proposal, but we're still wanting to work to get there.
Okay.
Insurance, again, we focused our resources on that longevity stipend, and so we've stuck with the current dollars for insurance as our last proposal. One of the things that came up was the changing in hours and the percentage of insurance, and again, thinking about the financial impact. For us, that would mean an additional 1.1 million in cost. And we don't see that we're able to do that. Article 12, you had you had yellow language around add subsection, but it's already in 6.5. And so we thought that we just didn't need that language. And then we focused on the longevity piece, and so we're not gonna add an additional holiday. You have to still have to choose one.
Brian, but looking at the longevity piece, you realize how few employees that is, how few employees you actually have that fall under that. It doesn't, all those other monies, I mean, it's not just so you know how we're thinking.
Well,
I went in today and looked at how many people it would affect it is
how many was it? Do you know?
really low. It was in the 20s.
It's 52.
I looked at it and did you take out the people that are leaving, people that are gonna leave, and people that, I did.
We have to have letters of resignation before we can count them in the.
Sometimes we get a heads
It's
up.
at 52 the first year.
Yeah, but we can't do anything until we have
I
things in
mean, that's what
writing.
our cost is based off of.
I looked at them all too individually, so we can agree to disagree.
So I'm not trying to, we were just trying to go with
I know.
what we heard, and so,
Well, that's important.
we're still, I mean, really, that was, like, the thing to me is that we focused on what we thought we heard that was most important, and if that's not what's most important, then, let us know.
No, that's important, it's just looking at when you do like a holiday like that, how do you think going back on the holiday piece too, and I saw there, you have a salaried employee, how is there any difference in cost in moving a day from a workday to a?
It is a cost, because then you don't have the work, and I would say we put the calendars out in the spring.
But
People
you
can
told
plan
us this year when
accordingly.
we were gonna be off, we didn't have a choice.
If that's the issue, let's talk about people on a choice versus the number of holidays. I mean, to me,
I
that's a
still
little
think
bit
Christmas
different.
Eve and New Year's Eve, seriously, I mean, what other, most workforces have those off, and
There's a
I
lot of
just
places.
don't see it as being a super thing, but I'd like to see cost if that would be okay.
So what I'm hearing you say that is there one that's really important to you?
Well, it's one that's been brought to us, but I would just like to see the cost of why it's not, why it is such an issue, and that's all. To start, please.
I think since we're talking about 12-month only, that's a very limited number of people as well. So I think that's part of the confusion on the cost, because one of those 2 days, I know they're both bolded there, but one of them you do already, right? So we're really just adding one day to one group of people in 12 months, which is a much smaller group than like a 10-month or something group or 11-month group even. So that's why we're asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, some of us have that same exact
Mhm.
language, so we understand.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just, I just
I
want to
mean,
make
I
sure.
guess
I have
I'm
the
just
same.
wondering if it's really been an issue, because again, people can plan accordingly. I mean, when you have vacation, you plan accordingly.
Use your overtime.
I'm just wondering if it has been a problem for folks.
Well, I would say we've heard the ask from our members, so we're presenting that here at the table, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for this clarification.
Yeah, and again, we're not packaging things, right? We're just bringing forward whole capital proposals.
No,
And so in that, what we're trying to do is get the feel, the vibe for where you feel like it's most critical, and that's what we're trying to count.
okay, thank you.
So if we're cold, let us know.
No, it's just want to ask questions back, just.
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with it. I just, again,
It's just looking at, we always talk about the cost of things, but we get cost that out as well. That's all.
okay, on the leave, that took us a while, to be honest.
Tell us about
I'm hoping you guys were just enjoying the new wording we have.
We were working on our own mercy.
My goodness.
All right, so what we came up with is we tried to take both things into account. So we tried to take into account, the whole package, right? Or both concepts. And so what we came up with was, instead of 3 days, adding a 4th day, so 4 days. And those are taken in increments. So if we had a late start, then that's a portion of a day, typically like 2 hours. Or if we had if we had to leave early because of circumstances like snow, then that might be 2 hours or 3 hours. And so building up 4 days, we feel like can account for both of those scenarios. And so we tried to put it all within one bullet.
I think one of the things we heard, and we saw specific language, but I think it can get confusing, so giving this flexibility is those who, individuals feel like they have to come in before teachers, for example, and that doesn't feel fair. And so that your proposal was to pay them. This additional day gives the flexibility to allow that delayed start to be paid, or that early release, so individuals don't feel maybe that pressure. Because as much as, we need to recognize there are labor laws, bully, based on hourly employees. And so we are hoping this meets the concern that was there with that flexibility.
So what we were trying to do is take the delays and the early dismissals kind of out of this process. Reason being is that, I show up an hour late because of weather, and James shows up 2 hours late, the late start is 2 hours, you know what I mean? Like, somebody shows up 30 minutes, that's a lot of tracking for you guys, especially if it's in 15-minute increments. So we were trying to say, hey, look, on those days, usually it's not more than 2 hours, you cancel probably anyway, so it's those days we just would have those would be covered, and they get there when it's less work for you guys to track it too.
The tracking is the
Some days.
employee submitting their time card.
Sure, but you have to track from their available 4 days, right? How much they have left, right?
We have a
So-
system for that.
You can't send me emails twice a year, I tell you. No, I'm kidding. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, there's some accountability on employees.
Just teasing you. All right, so, well, I mean, that's what we were trying to do, is just break it into 2 sections for that reason. Just so, most places these days are just treating those, if it's 2-hour delay, then it's just paid, so whenever they get it, that's what we were trying to do with ours, to make it simpler, is the idea, so.
And we were trying to make it simpler just by putting it all together.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So, yeah, and I think the concepts are the same. It's just there's a lot of language here, and we tried to truncate it.
All right, thank you.
So then, sick leave, we stuck with what we had before. Did you want to add anything about the, consecutive workdays?
So, again, we're just trying to align with our policy. And this is 14.7.5.
And then do you want to do the next one too?
The sick leave cash out.
Yeah.
So we appreciate the attempt. What we believe is you are trying to respond to what our concern is, having employees come to work, because we're seeing an extraordinary number of people running out of leave early on in the year. We don't believe this is necessarily the way to do it. We also, that's why we shifted the money from doing a payout at the end of the year. Didn't hear that that was important to you. So that's why we're not necessarily looking at it this way, is this is gonna take individuals a while, and we're not sure that it's actually going to mean anything in order to do the retirement. That's not the piece we're hearing. I know it was a creative idea and we appreciate it, but we're trying to focus what other ways we're hearing that's important. And then the second part of that is looking at the severance piece. We did put a severance benefit on there. And right now, most of the individuals within that 20 can use that towards, right, counting in the retirement.
Oh, okay, good point.
Where at some point down the road, maybe another 5 years, we start shifting that, and maybe that's a different conversation at the bargaining table. But we also, if we're looking at trying to retain people, this is sort of handing money to people leaving us. And so again, we want to look at taking care of people in the system right now.
Okay, and then, so the severance, it would count towards PERS and all that?
The severance, what?
The severance package you offered, it would count towards
The
PERS?
severance benefit
Yeah.
is when they leave, that's paid out after they're retired. So their last check, let's just say, is in June.
Yeah.
That severance will be paid in July, so everything's already been signed off for their retirement.
Okay, so it's just a lump sum. Okay, thank you. That's good clarification.
The Article 17, we're okay with the language around JLMC. And then the last one I think we have is the unicorn piece. And again, we know that our enrollment, what we see for the next 4 years is decline. And so we're worried about putting anything in there. Even I appreciate going to the 3rd year, but we're still worried about where we're gonna be at that time. And so we're not wanting to add that language right now. And then we wanted to, on the grievance, we want to keep the alignment between the association, so we're wanting to stick with 20. And then in this packet, you can see the MOU for unified basketball at the end of this packet. And then the strike and piece, we wanted to maintain the language. And then the safety article, we know you have, and then as well as the Article 24.
We have ours.
Yeah.
Slide, didn't they?
I'll just look over your shoulder and then. No, I can totally do it.
I tried to save that.
I'll just enjoy your
Appreciate that.
I can't say it here, but I am sure there's a reason.
This was fun to go through. It was fun.
Because it's new. I think it's popular.
I still believe that, I think the beginning part we're fine with. Of course, and then when we get to 23.1.2, we'll take out before we get into the word. That's okay to strike, but the word serious, we still think needs to be struck. Bodily injury is bodily injury, because if it's serious. That if, employees being placed in a situation where there could be any bodily injury, could end up serious. I just think that word is not right. And this section here. We saw this change in this district will notify subsection down here, when the district has been informed. Notice will be provided as soon as possible when the district has been informed that a student has been adjudicated for engaging in a crime involving violent behavior. That's a different wording. Yeah. Hopefully. Okay. It's that one, yeah. Yeah, we're proposing that part, the subsection. Staff members physically injured at work to the degree that they cannot safely or physically remain at work, the staff member will be released for the remainder of the day without loss of pay. We didn't know if that is already a policy or Jennifer. how
I
that
wouldn't say
works?
it's a policy, because policy is right at the board level, but it is a practice. Our administrators have the ability to go ahead and do that. They have that discretion.
So then it's based on who the administrator is or how they feel that day, or, I mean,
Well, I would hope that's not.
I know, I don't mean it in a funny way, I just mean, it's leaving a lot on them to have to.
Right, and well, I think because it's a conversation they're having with the employee and kind of gauging where the employee is, what they're needing, and can make that determination. They don't have to call us and say, can I or can I not? They can just make that determination. Sometimes employees just need a little bit of extra time. And then they can say, yep, let's, give you this, or they can say, really, I see you're not in a space, let's have you go home. So I don't want to just limit it. I want our administrators to be able to have that conversation.
And that's the follow-up. That's the follow-up.
Okay.
Jen, for just to be totally, are all of your administrators are fully aware they have that discretion?
Should be, yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Is it something that you do like a yearly communication as a reminder or anything to them or anything like that?
No, I think it's a conversation we have. I would say really it comes down to levels, have conversations about it. We have it, whether it's at leadership, if things are coming up. There's a number of different leadership type of meetings, and so conversations happen at a variety of levels. And even I would say if there's specific situations they're unsure of, they call one another and say, haven't run into this, or they'll call a district administrator, and that often happens for a consult on a situation, and those are pieces that we'll ask. So how's the employee doing? What do we need to do? Things like that.
So the concern is more the way this is written, where it's just, it's limiting and mandated to be this way versus the administrator having the flexibility.
Right, and sometimes the employee may not want to, and sometimes it
Right.
may feel like, based on how it's written, feel they have to go home. I know individuals sometimes just might need a little extra time, or just even a conversation to debrief
Right.
before they go back in a situation. We know everyone's a little bit different.
Okay, we can work with that, thank you.
All right, and we were at the, this part. The top part, yes, just to take uncommon out of the heading, but keep it in 23.2.1. Because this whole paragraph doesn't just talk about uncommon, it talks about other stuff. So we feel that if we just make that health and safety situations, and then the first one is about uncommon, and it's hard to think of any other words to use in there. And then this next one, in 23.2.2, there's the word recurring, and then there's the word repeated. And those we could see remaining as long as the second bullet, where it says incident eligibility shall be established based on the employee receiving repeat non-consensual physical contact. And we would agree to leave those two words in if that is accepted.
So the one thing we had sort of concerns, and this might sound weird to say concerns about non-consensual, is because think of a kindergartner who just loves to hug. And that might not necessarily be consensual, but they do just come up and want to hug their adult, their teacher, their aide, whatever, whoever that person is. And so that's one of the things we struggled with using that particular. I think the intent is someone who's actually being hit, right? But I think we just need to, I'm assuming that you all didn't mean that group, but right, like maybe we use some other words or find a different way to describe if that's the intent. But that was one thing for us, is that would limit in situations where it's,
Okay.
So you could maybe say something like, say you're saying instead of non-consensual, maybe something about inappropriate, or, because a kindergartner, not, I can't really say much inappropriate there, but an older child, grabbing at you in a way.
yeah, I think we'll have to be careful because again, words matter.
Mhm.
But I just wanted you to know why we had some concerns about that particular phrase.
Mhm.
And that was one particular reason.
Okay.
Well, the good news is I think we're fairly close in that section.
24. So 24. You want to explain that part of that?
So we just, since we didn't have this in Union Rights for some reason, we just put it here. We think we're fine with your alteration, just with this acknowledgement that is the law. Just it talks about there's a mandatory subject that we agree that we are no way waiving that. We would sit down and bargain over a mandatory subject. So I think that gets us to where we need to be in that section to be done with it.
So our next meeting I see is May 13th.
Sounds great.
So I'm wondering, based on where we're at, we'll work on this piece. And have you start then with kind of the bigger bundle,
Yes.
as Hobie likes to say.
Don't encourage. I'm working on it. I thought of other words, but they weren't appropriate either, so we decided.
I'm gonna start tracking how many times
Bingo.
yeah. So does that seem reasonable? Okay. Because I know we're getting closer, obviously the financial is the biggest piece.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we want to get, I don't think we have any more scheduled after that.
Wonder if we should maybe just schedule one more, because I think next time we could probably get through quite a bit,
Okay.
but there might be little bits and pieces that you.
How's the 20th look for folks?
Do we potentially want to extend the time next time?
13th. Following week.
Okay.
The
I
20th.
have another thing at 5.
Okay.
20th look for folks? It'd be 1 week later, exactly.
I am not available that day.
Okay.
Is there anything that same week? The 13th or the 14th, 15th, 16th?
Well, we're meeting the 13th, we probably want time this between.
Yeah. That's why I haven't done that.
What about the week of the 20th? Is there anything later in that week available? The 23rd?
I think the 23rd, 22nd, I'm good.
No,
23rd would be, we'd have to be done by 4. I have the 21st also, interestingly enough,
22nd, we have something already, Holly?
4:30, right?
No.
Could we do a 12 to 4 on the 23rd,
What about the 24th?
Friday?
I can't.
I'm sorry.
24th.
Oh, come on.
It's Valentine's Day. Come on.
We can do it in the morning.
No, it's actually my vacation.
Take your personal day, no.
No, I can't do the 24th, unfortunately. I am not in town. But I can make just about every other day work that week.
What day can't you?
The 24th, because I'm out of
Oh,
town.
We've already determined Friday's off the table. So is the 23rd, I mean, maybe we do a working lunch?
I can do it,
Get
I can do it.
Oh, you
before that,
can't?
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
22nd.
I can do the 22nd up until about 3:30.
We have voting time that day, even though you're not new till.
We have voting, we have a voting box
Oh,
and
the
stuff.
earlier piece, right?
Yes.
Well, do you
So
want to do the morning?
We can do the morning. I can do the morning.
I could, what time were you?
We're
Would have
gonna
to be
get
first
most
thing
of
in the
this
morning.
done,
I do.
not the next one, so I don't know that we,
The 13th.
if we need to be done by noon, we could do 9 to noon.
I'm thinking.
We could do 22nd, 9 to noon. I could.
I can do.
Let's do it.
5:22, 9 to noon.
Okay, and then you'll say where,
I will send.
when we pick that out, if we need it.
And
If we need it.
do we, like a full next week after that.
Well, it sounds like that day, you're gonna be here the whole day, will we?
Yeah, right? I don't know. Until June.
I'll get back to you. Yes, we are still live.
Okay, I just sent invite.
Thank you.
Should be on your calendars. Okay.
Since we're still live, James, you want to say anything about tonight?
Yes, so, Almost Maine opens this weekend. Tonight's the free staff show for anyone listening in, all 3 of you. But we also are open for 2 weekends, so please come see the show.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right.